Digital engagement team. So we went live in November 2021 and we're made up of the three people that are listed here on the right hand side. So Jack Rigby, that's myself. I'm the digital stakeholder lead officer. And my two colleagues, Emma Furno and Emma Murphy, are the digital engagement officers. And effectively, we are the new digital engagement team created at the end of last year. The funding for this team was made available through the Aberdeen City Region deal. Now, with a portion of the deal allocated to the digital work stream, it was determined by the CRD board that digital infrastructure and connectivity was a massive opportunity to invest in particularly for Aberdeenshire, because of the natural rural area that we inhabit in Scotland. Now, because of planned infrastructure programmes, the decision was made, rather than investing the funds into topping up or expanding on additional contracts, the decision was made to create a new engagement team to stimulate demand in the different programmes available to residents, but also to complete gap analysis work in digital connectivity to really identify where there's still opportunities across Aberdeenshire, and also to work with stakeholders across the board to identify and look to implement new solutions where these gaps have been identified. Now, due to our City Region Deal funding, we are committed to working across both local authorities of Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire. However, our priority will naturally be Aberdeenshire because of the challenges and opportunities present in the area regarding digital connectivity. And our remit follows four key strands which are listed on the screen here. Firstly, it's stimulation of government programmes such as the Reaching 100% programme to encourage uptake and engagement in the voucher schemes and the support available. We'll also complete community engagement activity to identify opportunities for voucher aggregation and collation to maximise opportunities within communities. We'll work closely with stakeholders, which includes local and national telecoms operators, to identify opportunities for innovation and infrastructure development, but also to work closely with programme funders and operators to ensure that Aberdeenshire's concerns are highlighted and encouraging solution finding for this area. And lastly, there will be supporting residents, businesses and communities in matters relating to digital connectivity. It's important to state here that primarily we are here to provide advice, support, information and guidance, with various different programmes running, which we'll talk through in this briefing session, and multiple options available for residents looking for better digital connectivity. It's not in our gift as the council to complete infrastructural works regarding broadband. Therefore, we're here to ensure that residents are aware of the landscape and to help guide them through a confusing and what is sometimes a complicated process. And for information on the page there, our email address, digitalengagement@aberdeenshire.gov.uk, is the shared inbox where we encourage any and all inquiries or questions to come to the digital engagement team. We have a landing page as part of Aberdeenshire Council's website, which is under the digital connectivity page, under communities, under support and advice, under business, and the hyperlink is there as well. And hopefully you've seen the internal Yammer page as well, which is also the link for in the slide. So first and foremost is the Reaching 100% or R100. The R100 programme was first announced back in 2017, and effectively the project commits to giving access to superfast broadband, which is speeds defined as 30 megabits per second or better, to 100% of premises in Scotland by the end of March 2022. Now, just that little box on the right hand side just gives you an idea of what the definition of superfast broadband is. When we talk about superfast, ultrafast, gigabit, these phrases can sometimes be batted around by internet service providers, and understanding what that means is a real big help. So decent broadband is what's classed as the universal service obligation. It's what Ofcom deemed to be the basic, the slowest broadband which is acceptable, which is 10 megabits per second. And unfortunately, there are still a large number of premises in Aberdeenshire who are really far below that already. Superfast, as we're working to, is the 30 megabit per second speeds, and that is the definition across the world of what superfast broadband is. Ultra-fast broadband is usually classed as about 300 megabits per second, and gigabit broadband or gigabit capable speeds are a gigabit per second, which is the equivalent to 1,000 megabits per second or faster. Now, the aim of the R100 to get access to superfast for every premises in Scotland will be achieved through the rollout of full fibre broadband, which has been commissioned by Scottish Government, as well as the use of the Scottish Broadband Voucher scheme, which we'll talk about in more detail here. And as it states there, the R100 aims to deliver a future-proofed national fibre network, making Scotland one of the best connected places anywhere in Europe and underpinning future economic growth. And this investment is targeted where it is needed most, and namely in rural Scotland. For those that have been with the council for a while or that were involved in old connectivity programmes, you may remember the DSSB, or Digital Scotland Superfast Broadband Programme. That's effectively what installed the green fibre cabinets around the countryside and got fibre to the cabinet for a large number of premises. And that really benefited town centres, market towns. It didn't really benefit the rural population as much. And so this programme with R100 will reach and support those premises. The R100 has an online postcode tracker, so any member of the public, anybody at all, can go in and check their postcode and their address to see where they sit in terms of rollout and support available. And that is found on www.scotlandsuperfast.com. So with reaching 100%, approximately 16,000 premises in Aberdeenshire will be connected with full fibre broadband through this programme by the end of 2027. That is a massive increase in what the commercial plans would have been without this programme. Openreach being the only real wholesale full fibre operator north of Arbroath. Their commercial plans of expansion included about 200 to 300 premises in Aberdeenshire. So jumping that up to 16,000 does show a real mass investment in full fibre infrastructure across the area. Now, in order to meet the commitment of getting superfast broadband now, before the end of March 2022, any property that is due to be connected to full fibre, but not until the next little while, they're entitled to a £400 interim voucher as part of the Interim Voucher Scheme, or IVS, which is part of the Scottish Broadband Voucher Scheme. And this interim voucher is used to obtain a temporary, superfast broadband solution whilst that resident waits for full fibre infrastructure coming in the coming years. The big deadline here is that any of these vouchers, and there are 16,000 of them in Aberdeenshire, must be utilised by the end of March this year. So we are quite rapidly running out of time. The voucher scheme was launched in September 2020. It's arguably not been very well advertised. It will be coming to an end on the 31st of March 2022, and it is highly unlikely that deadline will be extended. But on top of that, there are around 7,000 properties which unfortunately are not included in the planned rollouts of full fibre. So these properties won't just get a £400 voucher. Instead, they will get a £5,000 main voucher as part of the main voucher scheme to obtain a more permanent superfast broadband solution. So these properties will not be due to receive full fibre connections at any point in the near future. And so they get a larger subsidy to get a solution themselves for superfast broadband. And there is currently no deadline for the main voucher scheme. To give you a visual of what the R100 planned rollout looks like, here's a map. So BT and their partner Openreach, as commissioned by Scottish Government, will deploy full fibre infrastructure to over 16,000 premises between 2021 and 2027. This map shows a visual representation of when different areas will go live as the rollout moves through the coming years. So full fibre, it is a costly and time-sensitive installation. It does take time, and so the whole of Aberdeenshire won't be switched on at once. Effectively, to talk you through what's on screen, the darkest green is what will go live first, which is around the Portlethen and Newton Hill area. And there's actually just 145 properties have now been successfully connected to full fibre as part of that initial phase. Then it gets, as the green gets lighter, it gets slightly later. And then as it turns to yellow, into amber, into red, it gets later and later. And as you can see, it's not a straightforward south to north or east to west installation. The pockets to the south of Aberdeen will be done first, with some in South Formartine and into East Geary. Moving down and up the coast at the same time, hitting South Kincardine and Mearns, up into the Buchan coast, across into Banff and Buchan, down into Mar, and then it finishes off, ironically again, back in Geary, around the West Hill area. But to put that into perspective, if you're more of a numbers person, this kind of breaks it down in what the numbers look like. So this slide is the most up-to-date data that we have at the moment. Scottish Government does give us renewed and refreshed data every 2 weeks. So I can confirm I checked this morning and the data is correct. 124 premises have now been connected to the full fibre broadband, and this is beginning with the rollouts in Aberdeenshire, with Portlethen being the first community benefiting. There are still over 16,000 interim vouchers available in Aberdeenshire, alongside just under 7,000 main vouchers. And to give you the perspective, 500 vouchers have been utilised so far in Aberdeenshire. It's worth noting here that Aberdeenshire's uptake of the voucher scheme is the highest of any local authority in Scotland, but 500 out of a combined total of nearly 23,000 is a drop in the ocean, so there is still a lot of work to do. And deployment of the full fibre build-out as part of the R100 programme, as I've stated, will hit different areas in different phases in different times. And the timescales are unlikely to change dramatically from what we've been told. So as I said, Portlethen and Newton Hill will be the first areas to go online, with some already online by the end of March, with different phases progressing up in different areas up until 2027. And as you can see there on the screen, the numbers kind of peak out in 2025. That's when the largest number is going to get done during a course of a year, and then petering down to 2027 at the end. And again, this is why we'll share the slides and the information at the end, so you can maybe do a little bit of zooming in or a little bit of looking for your own area if necessary. Now, the main vouchers, so these are the premises that will not receive full fibre. These are the premises that are eligible for a £5,000 voucher. This is a map of where they are, and as you would expect, it's quite sporadic and quite sparse, but it's all over the place. There's not particular areas of focus. It is right across Aberdeenshire, which is a natural expectation considering the rurality of the area. To give you the information, there's 3 colours that are on the map there. So there are 3 reasons why a premises has not been included in the full fibre plans. The pink properties are new properties. Effectively new builds. They didn't exist when the initial surveying was done back in 2017, when the initial scoping was done for the R100 project. So there was no way of knowing that they would be there to get full fibre. So they weren't included in plans. The grey properties are what are classed as out of scope. This means that these properties were deemed out of scope in build plans for a number of potential reasons. It may have been that superfast was already thought to be available to those properties, and that has since been deemed untrue or false, in which case they've been added into the voucher scheme rather than being added into the build plans. It may be that the property is an unknown property. So these could be properties that have no broadband connection, and so it was impossible to determine if they had superfast access. Or it could be that the property was potentially included in other commercial plans. Now, although this is quite a high-level map, most of the grey is actually in the Aberdeen city limits, and that's because of the work City Fibre are doing as part of infrastructure development in the city. So there are many, many properties in Aberdeen city that are due to be connected to full fibre through another means rather than R100, and therefore they were exempt from the build plans. And the blue dots, which is the majority in Aberdeenshire, these are properties that were not included in build plans as they were deemed too expensive or too complex to deliver full fibre to. So typically, these are rural outliers, these are farmhouses, these are properties that are in hard to reach places where the infrastructure of full fibre is going to be too expensive or too time consuming to get to. And again, to give the numbers rather than just a visual, the table on screen here shows the breakdown of where the main vouchers are with regards to council ward areas. So 409 main vouchers have been used so far. So out of the 501 total, the majority have been main vouchers that people have utilised. But as you saw in the previous slides, there are just under 7,000 properties still able to use a main voucher. So we're obviously very keen to engage with these people and help them through the process of getting better broadband as soon as possible. And to show the MVS usage to date, I've put the different areas listed there from 1st to 6th and where the numbers are. And this lines up nicely because Kincardine and Mearns has got the highest uptake of voucher usage because there's a very active local supplier, a telecoms operator called marykirk.com, who are very actively engaging with the community, encouraging people to utilise the vouchers. Where that's not been as prevalent or there's other operators not as active, that shows where the numbers are smaller. And effectively, that's what we're here to do, is to help spread the word, help people be aware that they're eligible for these vouchers and help them through that process. And just to move on slightly, the Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme. So this is part of the UK government's Project Gigabit. And the Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme, or GBVS, was created to support the most rural premises across the UK gain access to gigabit-capable broadband. It has a particular focus on SME businesses, as well as rural communities where possible. Now, Project Gigabit has been used to top up some of the R100 programme, and using Project Gigabit funding, Scottish Government was able to confirm and upgrade the R100 plan to mean that every connection they put in the ground is full fibre, which is making that plan and that programme a lot more effective. But the GBVS can be used in conjunction with the Scottish Broadband Voucher Scheme. And that means that certain properties, if it's a business, for example, may be able to access up to £8,500 of subsidy for an internet installation. So the £5,000 from the R100's main voucher scheme, as well as £3,500 from the Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme, gives that property added leverage and added subsidy to get a better solution for that location. It's worth noting that the GBVS is allocated on a postcode level, whereas the Scottish Broadband Voucher Scheme and the R100 programme works on individual premise level. So the R100 is a lot more specific and a lot more detailed in what can be achieved. The Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme works on postcode level, so it's slightly less accurate, but something that we're happy to support people with. And it's also worth highlighting that even if you already have super fast broadband, so maybe you already have 30 megabits per second, and you're not therefore eligible for support through the R100 programme, the Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme may be open to you still, because this is about helping people get gigabit broadband speeds. So ideally full fibre or fixed wireless solutions that are delivering a gigabit per second speeds. Any information and eligibility can be checked on www.gigabitvoucher.culture.gov.uk with the hyperlink that's listed there. Now, utilising the voucher schemes. So I've talked a little bit about what the vouchers are, how much they are, and who should be eligible for them. But these vouchers can be utilised by a range of operators, all of which can be found on the R100 website on scotlandsuperfast.com. And effectively, the voucher is claimed by an operator who installs a solution on the resident's behalf. The vouchers are effectively a cost recovery method for the telecoms operator to claim back the cost of an installation project. And to claim that voucher, the operator must install a solution that guarantees the resident 30 megabits per second, and that is followed up. So after every voucher is claimed, a member of the R100 team at Scottish Government will reach out to the resident and confirm that they are happy and receiving consistently 30 megabits per second. In addition, if it's the interim voucher scheme, the £400 voucher, then the operator must install that and the solution must be live within 28 days. Meaning that it doesn't give the operators a huge amount of time, but it does guarantee that there is a quick turnaround and an instant solution for residents. And in order for the installations to be live and the solutions to work, the resident would need to subscribe to the operator who has installed that solution for their internet services for a minimum of 12 months. Now, what the Scottish Government have done for this is they have lined themselves with Ofcom and the Universal Service Obligation of Internet Affordability, which states that £46.10 per month is the limit or the cap of what superfast broadband can cost you. Now, £46.10 a month is still quite expensive. It's especially for low-income households and vulnerable individuals. And so we are keen to work very closely with operators, as well as a part of the digital inclusion work stream, to see if there's ways that we can negotiate with operators and find deals and better solutions for people where that is not possible. But when it comes to the R100 programme, that is the cap in which they put in place. If somebody was to go with an operator and ask for more than super fast, maybe they wanted ultra fast broadband speeds, then the operator can naturally start charging more than that. And it's important to state here that we have access to all the data when it comes to R100 and the Gigabit Broadband Voucher Scheme, as well as information from Ofcom and Openreach. And we've managed to put that on mapping tools, so we can really zoom in and analyse premise level information. We're here to support residents to find the best operator and the best solution for their property. What we encourage is that when people are wanting to use these vouchers, is they're more than welcome to come to us, where we can do that mapping, we can do that analysis and give them the best advice on which solutions are going to be best suited, which operators can deliver to their address, and be very open with the pros and cons of the different solutions. And we'll talk about those different solutions, those different technologies in just a moment. Community partnerships, and this is one of the main reasons the digital engagement team was created, was what we're here to try and do is help neighbours club together to really increase their spending power and the subsidy, to really make sure that the communities benefit from bespoke, tailored solutions at their locations. All the vouchers are stackable, so whether that be the R100 vouchers or the Gigabit Broadband vouchers, we can cluster properties together to then maximise the spending power for that area. What this lets us do is it lets us leverage better local solutions for these areas, rather than a bog standard solution which can be rolled out in most places. It gets the operators to do a little bit more and do a little bit of thinking outside the box to find the best solution. What has also been an option is what's called community fibre partnerships. And effectively what this is doing is using the main vouchers, so the people that will not get full fibre, and blocking together their vouchers to make full fibre still a realistic possibility by getting the leverage of the subsidy as high as possible. Openreach were the main provider for that, as they're the wholesale fibre operator in this part of the country. They've unfortunately paused that scheme due to increased demand. However, we are working with other operators that are able to do the same work at actually a slightly cheaper cost than Openreach would have done it. And what we're keen to do as well is where we can get a community together and where we can get a cluster of properties together, it gives us more weight to go and negotiate with an operator to track them in, because it becomes more commercially viable where there's obviously more subsidy to claim back for the operator. But what it hopefully will let us do is take in and invite in new operators with new solutions that will really benefit Aberdeenshire. And in that same vein, we're working really closely with some national telecoms operators to attract investment in infrastructure and connectivity to the northeast, using the voucher schemes, but as well as that is using city region deal planning to really encourage that inward investment in terms of digital connectivity. So now we'll talk about we'll show you the different technologies that the vouchers can be used for. So probably the most common one, or the one that most people will be aware of and know about, is mobile broadband. So mobile broadband provides high-speed internet using the current mobile coverage network, which is typically 4G for most of Aberdeenshire. This obviously uses the existing network of mobile masts provided and managed by the 4 main mobile network operators, who are EE, O2, 3 and Vodafone. Now, the benefit of 4G, and as you'll see, how it works is effectively it's transmitted from the mast, similarly to your phone, except the signal is picked up by a router in the home instead of a mobile phone. The benefit of that is it is a portable option. That router can travel anywhere in the country where there is a signal from that network. It benefits from same-day activation. It takes little to no installation. Simply plug in the router and then put in a SIM card and it will be up and running. And typically it benefits from really low cost subscription rates. However, the negatives are that 4G suffers from what you would call network congestion. Excuse me. Because it's a shared connection, the more people that are connected to 4G at the same time and using it for data usage and internet application, the slower the speeds will be. So quite simply, things like if everybody's using 4G at the same time, the speeds will drop significantly. 4G coverage is unlikely to deliver speeds much better than 30 megabits per second, just due to the nature of the technology. 5G technology can deliver easily a gigabit per second speeds. However, as I'm sure you're aware, 5G is not currently available in Aberdeenshire, with Aberdeen City being the nearest kind of area with 5G connectivity. But that is something that we're looking to work on as part of the City Region Deal work stream as well, about encouraging 5G deployment in different pockets of Aberdeenshire. The next technology is fixed wireless broadband. So fixed wireless broadband effectively provides high-speed internet using radio signals. So it uses a network of transmission masts or relays which send out radio waves to the local area. Now, some really strong benefits of fixed wireless is it will easily deliver gigabit capable speeds already. The technology is at a point where gigabit per second speeds are available, and some operators are looking to upgrade to 3 gigabit per second speeds in the next couple of years. Again, it's a very straightforward install with a receiver fitted to the exterior of the property, normally in a high point, wired into a router within the home. It also, because it is a higher speed transmission, it also means it is low latency. So it's more, sorry, jumped ahead there. It's low latency, which means that it benefits from very stable connections that are usually unaffected by much else. The disadvantages, however, is that this technology has to have line of sight between the receiver and the mast or relay. So it is significantly affected by landscape. And when we live in a part of the world that has got mountains and forests all over the place, it does unfortunately mean that fixed wireless is not always going to be an option. It's typically run by local operators, so there are 5 local telecoms operators, all of whom run fixed wireless networks, which means that they are responsive and they are keen to expand their network, but it has to be commercially viable for them. And that's where we're keen to do the cluster work and the community aggregation so that we can potentially expand that network using the subsidy available. Satellite broadband is the next technology. So this provides high-speed internet using satellite networks. So the broadband signal, as is displayed on screen, is transmitted from space and picked up by a satellite receiver on the property, similarly to a Sky dish or a satellite TV dish. It's effectively available everywhere. It's not affected by landscape or geography, because as long as there's open sky above your premises, then the likelihood is you can pick up satellite. Currently, as you would expect, the satellites kind of sit to the southeast, kind of that southeasterly direction in the sky. But again, if you can see the sky, the likelihood is you can pick up satellite signal, no problem. Again, the installation is relatively straightforward by setting out a receiver on the side of the property and wiring into a router in the home. And it does benefit from incredibly stable connections, and it's the only technology which is unaffected by the weather, because no matter what happens on Earth, those satellites are going to still beam the signal no matter what. The disadvantage to satellite is the distance that signal has to travel. So like all things, the further something has to travel, the slower it gets. We call that latency. And essentially what that means is a slight delay or a slight lag in the signal. That usually equates to around about 0.7 seconds. So it is minimal, and that has minimal impact, if any, on the majority of internet applications, even on video calls. I've done video calls using satellite broadband and not seen any impact on that personally. However, what it does affect is things like online gaming, which require instantaneous reaction or instantaneous response. Satellite, due to the nature of the technology, is a higher cost on a month-by-month basis for subscription rates. because the maintenance of a network like that is naturally a lot more expensive. And although satellite broadband does not have data caps, it has something called priority data. And effectively what that means is you will get approximately 10 gigabytes of priority data. That guarantees you a minimum of super fast speeds, no problem, you can get that. As soon as that 10 gigabits have been used, you're not charged any more money, but your speeds will drop dramatically. And you'll be dealing with kind of 2 to 5 megabit speeds at that point. It's worth noting here that satellite broadband has been around the longest, and it's probably advancing quicker than any other technology. Starlink, which is owned by Elon Musk's SpaceX, Project Kuiper, which is owned by Amazon, and OneWeb, which is partially owned by the UK government, have all recently launched incredibly high-speed satellite arrays, which are delivering about 5 gig per second speeds. So massively fast, hardly any lag or latency issues, meaning it really is a future-proof technology. Because they are just launched, they're not in commercial build yet, so they're incredibly expensive for a member of the public to go and sign up with. So they wouldn't be covered by the R100 or GBVS vouchers at the moment. But it's good to know that that technology is advancing and marching ahead, and that will affect the market going forward. And just for information, fibre to the cabinet, this is the most common broadband connection at present across Scotland. So as I mentioned earlier on, this was really expanded a number of years ago through the Digital Scotland Superfast Broadband or DSSB programme. Oops. Now, FTTC, fibre to the cabinet is fibre broadband, but not quite as good as full fibre, or also known as fibre to the premises. And effectively, fibre optic cable is in place between the exchange, your nearest telephone exchange, and then a green cabinet, which you'll see dotted around the countryside or dotted around towns and villages. And this is a fibre-enabled cabinet. Between the fibre-enabled cabinet and the home, it's old-fashioned copper wire. And that's sometimes known as ASDL cabling. Now, for residents who are within about 600 metres of the fibre-enabled cabinet, it's expected that broadband speeds will be pretty good, with super fast speeds easily being achieved. However, the further away down that copper cable you are, the longer the broadband travels through the copper cable, and therefore the slower the broadband speeds become. And naturally, for rural residents, FTTC typically does not deliver super fast speeds because of the sheer amount of copper cabling that is having to be travelled down. The fastest possible speed you'll get from fibre to the cabinet are around 80 megabits per second. And typically it's people that are right next to the cabinet or very close to the cabinet will receive that. And it will get slower and slower the further down you are. This technology is likely to be phased out moving forward as full fibre infrastructure is expanded across the UK and other solutions become more appealing. And fibre to the property. So this is what 16,000 premises in Aberdeenshire will be receiving, what some already have, and what most of us would really be looking for is it's the kind of the gold standard, if you like. Full fibre broadband means fibre optic cable directly from the exchange all the way to the property. So fibre to the premises or FTTP. It is future-proof for speeds. It easily delivers a gigabit per second at the moment, and it is the easiest infrastructure to upgrade, meaning that as technology improves and as these things improve, that will get faster and faster. It benefits from incredibly low latency, instantaneous almost reaction time for internet applications, thanks to the bandwidth and the speeds delivered through it. Monthly subscription costs are usually incredibly low because of open competition. Openreach are the company that lay the fibre. They're the wholesale operator of the fibre, but they don't deal with customers. That's where your internet service providers come in. And your BTs, your Skys, Plusnets, Vodafones all operate on Openreach technology, and therefore that competition keeps costs relatively low. The downsides, however, is that it is incredibly time consuming and expensive to install. It's by far the most expensive infrastructural technology to put in. It will always require installation of new cabling, and because it's fibre to the property, a common misconception is that because my neighbour has full fibre, I can get full fibre. but a fibre cable has to go all the way back to the exchange from your property. It's not just a case of splicing into another cable, because fibre optic cable works by sending light through the cable rather than an electricity signal. Therefore, because of the nature of it, it will not be a viable option from the most remote and the most isolated premises across the country. And just for information, so when the R100 plans go through and full fibre is being installed and premises are being upgraded across the countryside, this is what will happen. First of all, when full fibre is away to be installed, the local exchange will be upgraded to allow for increased traffic flow and infrastructure. So you'll see the open reach vans starting to appear around exchanges. Then the cross-country infrastructure needs to be adapted, improved, or sometimes even created to allow for fibre optic cabling. What this looks like is three potential options. Underground ducts are either improved for fibre optic cabling. So where underground ducts already exist, they just need to be cleared for the fibre to be blown through. Alternatively, new ducting maybe needs to be buried along roadsides using mole ploughs, and that's a lovely photo of a mole plough on the bottom left. Old-fashioned copper cable or ADSL cable is quite often laid in ditches overground rather than underground. That is not possible for full fibre because of the fragility of that technology, and so where necessary, new ducting can be put in along roadsides. However, that's not always possible down to the narrow country roads that we've got plenty of around these parts. As well as that, putting in ducting is naturally the most time consuming and most expensive. Overhead poles can also be upgraded and expanded on to allow for overhead installation of fibre cables. And again, there's a little image, a handy diagram there to show what a pole-to-pole solution looks like, which has a messenger wire to carry the fibre cable. Once that infrastructure is laid across the country, a connectorized block terminal, or a CBT, is built near to the premises, connecting all the way to the exchange. Once that CBT is in place, full fibre to the premises has been delivered by Openreach and can now be ordered by the resident. The final bit of the puzzle, the final switch on from the CBT into the home, into the router, is always done by the internet service provider, so the customer-facing element, whether that be, like I say, BT, Sky, Plusnet, Vodafone, or any others. They do that final installation, that final connection, and it takes about 9 to 18 days from the timeline of ordering to installation for that. Some case studies, just to give examples of some of the good successes that we've had that have really maximised the work. The first one is using the main voucher scheme. So Ultra Networks are a local Fraserburgh-based telecoms company, and what they were able to do was roll out full fibre down from Fraserburgh to the village of Memsey, connecting 10 households using the main voucher scheme. So each premises was able to leverage that £5,000 voucher, so £50,000 of funding that Ultra Networks were able to utilise, which gave them the ability to build that stretch of full fibre down from Fraserburgh, giving these properties access to in excess of gigabit capable speeds, which was a massive increase from the 5 to 6 megabits per second they were benefiting from before. This has obviously benefited the residents, but it's also helped a local telecoms operator grow their business. Mrs. Mortimer, a resident in Aberdeenshire, is living in a rural knotspot near Craig Dam in Midford-Martin and had broadband speeds of 2.2 megabits per second at its highest. Now, this resident is due to be connected to full fibre broadband as part of the R100 plans in 2024. So therefore, she had the interim voucher, the £400 voucher, to get a temporary broadband solution. Mrs. Mortimer, because of the place she lived, was a no-go for 4G signal, as 4G coverage was so poor. Fixed wireless wasn't great because of the location, so she opted for satellite technology, using a company called NorthSat, who are based out in Inverness, who were able to install a satellite broadband solution. And Mrs. Mortimer now enjoys average speeds, of 54 megabits per second, with the option to receive up to a gigabit per second if she wants. And lastly there, Mr. Rennie had poor broadband living in a town in Aberdeenshire, and This was an unusual one in the sense of the Digital Scotland website, so scotlandsuperfast.com, stated he should have already have access to superfast broadband speeds and therefore was not eligible for support through the voucher schemes. However, after dealing with the digital engagement team, we were able to advise him and arm him with the knowledge, so to speak. So he knew to approach his supplier directly to investigate a potential fault on the line. Engineers visited the site, applied a fix, and superfast speeds were attained overnight. From memory, I believe he went from around about 5 to 8 megabits per second, right up to nearly 50, simply by knowing what to ask and knowing the options available to him, which we were able to obviously help with. And it allowed for a very quick resolution for that resident. And lastly, just to kind of give a bit of awareness, some other digital connectivity programs that the digital engagement team are on top of, aware of, working on, or keeping abreast of. The big one at the moment is the public switch telephone network, Pstn switch off. So this is the move away from analog landlines to digital phone lines. I mean, the BT and UK government announced in 2019 the plans to retire the Pstn, which is quite simply no longer fit for purpose in the technology that's required these days. By 2023, all landlines will aim to be switched over to digital phone lines, with the network being officially retired in 2025. This plan naturally comes with a lot of concerns and anger from the public, in particular thanks to the recent storms we've had, which have resulted in power cuts, meaning that a landline, a copper-powered landline, was sometimes the only communication for that member of the public. There are solutions and there are workarounds that no matter what the vulnerabilities might be, there is solutions in place that Ofcom have determined. So we are able to and we're happy to advise the public and yourselves on what this means for you and for them, and to hopefully settle any worries from this switch off. The S4GI, or Scottish 4G infill programme, which will be completed next year in 2023, has resulted in 2 new 4G masts built in Aberdeenshire, one in Colliston, which went live last year, and one in Bogdan at Turriff, which is due to go live middle of this year. So that's expanding 4G coverage in Aberdeenshire. But in the same vein, the Shared Rural Network, or SRN, this was created in March 2020 as a joint organisation between the 4 mobile network operators and with UK government, with investment from all sides. And the SRN will effectively expand 4G coverage, partially by funding the mobile network operators to upgrade their existing mast network, and by UK government commissioning the building of new masts to fill not spots. Work will begin this year on the Shared Rural Network, with the programme forecast to be complete in 2027, in line with the R100 project. And with the Shared Rural Network, 4G coverage in the northeast of Scotland will move from 86% to 94% geographic coverage, meaning 94% of the land mass in the northeast will receive 4G connectivity. Next, the Aberdeen City Region deal has allocated funds for a 5G hub in Aberdeen City, which will serve as a test bed for industry, highlighting the benefits and opportunities private 5G networks can bring. We are working really closely with the City Region deal and the Scottish Government to explore opportunities to bring these benefits into Aberdeenshire, mainly for things for industry around agri-tech, around ports and logistics, as well as in food processing. The Internet of Things is an ever-increasing area of focus and research, and something that can bring a huge range of benefits to business and industry. The digital engagement team, we're striving to stay informed in developments in this area so that we can jump on to best practice and identify opportunities for Aberdeenshire. Project Gigabit, run by UK's Department of Culture, Media and Sport, is a growing strategy that has allowed for numerous programmes, including the development of gigahubs and gigabit level infrastructure across the UK. As a team, we follow developments here closely, again, to seek ideas and best practice and things that may benefit Aberdeenshire. And lastly, their DCMS have also launched an open consultation seeking views on the legislative proposals to ensure that new build properties have access to gigabit capable connections as standard, effectively meaning that all new properties have full fibre installed as standard. That is something that the UK government are looking to install and implement, and Scottish Government have confirmed they will follow it if that goes through. And that is everything I had to run through. I suppose our ask of yourselves, and thanks again for attending the session. But what we're asking for is for you to spread the word and to share information for us. Word of mouth spreads better than anything else, and we welcome any and all queries, questions, inquiries, comments to the digital engagement team. We're here to support residents. We're here to support yourselves as residents as well, of what broadband solutions are available to you, and effectively, like I mentioned before, we have the data, we have premise level information, we have mapping tools. We can see which premises, which houses, which businesses are eligible for support. What we don't have is the personal information. We don't know who lives at these addresses, and so we are desperately trying to spread the word as best we can. And although a mail drop and letters to the door are a last case resort, people tend not to read letters that are addressed to the occupier. So anything we can do to spread the word, we are active on social media. We're active, obviously, with the council's website, on Yammer. Anything else we can do. We're speaking to elected members. We're speaking to community councils, speaking to community groups, area partnerships. But any advice, any guidance you can give us on reaching more, we'd be more than happy to take that on board. And again, our email address is there, our landing page is there, and our link to the Yammer page is there. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments at all at this point, and thanks for listening.
Hi Heather, do you want to come in first?
Yeah, thanks. I just wondered, have you considered doing something like this with all the community councils, a virtual session with them? Because there's quite a few within Van Bucken that I think would be very interested in this. And I definitely, I forwarded, I think you sent an email to them all, and I sort of resent it, if you like, because I'm aware that there's quite a few that do have issues in Van Bucken.
Yeah, we've absolutely done that, and we've done so. There's one community council has taken us up on the offer quite early doors. That was Cromar. And we've got Inchmarlow, Brathens, and Glassell are also booking us in for a session quite shortly. We're more than happy to do it. I appreciate that at the moment a lot of the community councils are probably looking at things like resilience measures after the recent storms and the power cuts. And I suppose it's just one of those things that we've kind of maybe fallen onto the back burner. And we've not been the priority for people recently, which we fully appreciate. But we're more than happy to do it, and I can resend that information out and reapproach community councils, and the offer will always be there to any group, whether it be a community council, community group, area partnership, anything. If there's a group of people that want us to listen, that want to listen, I'm more than happy to come and speak.
That's great, thanks.
Hi Tim, do you want to go next?
Yeah, cool, thank you. Really engaging presentation, really impressed with your knowledge on such a complex programme. I'm part of the regeneration team, and we're setting up and will be soon Macduff Regeneration Development Partnership meetings. And I wondered if we could utilise your experience, if you've not already been approached, to kind of provide input for that. So it's nice to hear, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity that you potentially could help us out with that.
Absolutely. We did something for the Fraserburgh Regeneration Team partnership before Christmas, and it was pretty well received, and we got a little bit of traction on that. Again, more than happy to do it. What's really beneficial, I suppose, and it kind of relates to the community council piece as well, is thanks to the mapping and thanks to the data, we can be very specific. If you say, right, it's just Macduff or just Banff, we can zoom in, we can tell you exactly how many vouchers are available in that area, where they are, where the clusters are, which solutions are available. We can give that detail. So the more specific the area is, the more value, I suppose, it is. So anything like that, it maybe means a bit of work beforehand to pull that together, but more than happy to present that or give that to your team to present.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Hi, Councillor McHale. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Just wanted to say thank you very much. That was very interesting, very slick presentation. Yes, full of admiration for your grasp of all this stuff. It made a lot of sense to me. I mean, I'm not a kind of technical sort of person, but this made it much clearer. On the kind of point was made about contacting community councils. Have you contacted any of the community councils in the Geary area and in my kind of area in West Hill?
So yeah, so the community councils, I've sent a communication to all community councils, so all the points of contact for all community councils in Aberdeenshire. Like I said, the response hasn't been high, but I do appreciate that we've maybe not been, the priority. I'm more than happy to follow that up if there's different contacts that you're aware of that have maybe gone to the wrong person. I've just literally gone through the contacts that are listed internally on the council's intranet. But I think I'll probably be following that up probably the end of this week or beginning of next anyway, as we are keen to really make sure that we're getting as many people supported before the end of March for the interim voucher scheme. And I suppose just to kind of comment, you're saying that you're not a technical person. Even the most technical people can be really confused by this, and I think that's one of the reasons the digital engagement team were created. Is it is. There's government working because it's a government scheme and a subsidy and a voucher scheme. There's technologies which a lot of people don't know about or are very wary of, like satellite technology has been around for a long time, and a lot of people have some very bad experience of it. And so we're here to kind of advise and talk through what that looks like now. So even the most tech savvy people can find it really difficult. So hopefully we are making it as accessible as possible, and it's good to hear that it's an engaging presentation because it means we're getting the messaging right. It's not too highbrow or too lowbrow. It's just in the golden zone in the middle. So thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you, and best wishes to you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from anybody else? No, I think that's it then.
Perfect. Stunned silence is always a good one. I just hope that means that everybody's taking it on board and they're happy with it. If there's anything you want to ask more questions about or want more information of, or even more importantly, if you've got rubbish broadband and you want a bit of support, contact us and we'll more than happily help. Like I say, there's 16,000 interim vouchers, which we really want to get used by the end of March. We want to make sure that Scottish Government are held to account on this. And so the more people we help, the better. The main vouchers, there's not a deadline on them as yet. Would be daft not to think that a deadline will be put on in the future, probably end of next year is what my guess would be. So once the 1st of April comes around, we'll be pivoting our focus to more on the main vouchers, but we can still help now. We've still got that capacity and that time, and more than happy to do it. But if there's no other questions, like I say, feel free to reach out to ourselves when you want. I will circulate the slides at the end of this, so you've got the links and the data and stuff that you can share that out as well. And we've obviously recorded the session, so once that is being recorded and transcribed, we'll get that shared as well.